Hey, I've got a couple of reviews to get through today. I've got the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch right here. I've had these roughly a week or two. Got them in the recent 11/11 November sales on AliExpress. They came with their own cases, pretty good. Obviously I don't have the stock cable on the EPZ. I upgraded it to a 2-core balanced open heart cable, and I do have the stock cable on the TRN Conch, which is a modular cable. I just have the standard 3.5 termination on that. Why I have all these other IMs here, I also have the Simgot EA500 that Kiwi use, Cadenza, Fiio FD11 and the Moondrop 2.2. I wanted to do a few comparisons of other IMs, kind of roughly in the price range, and in some comparisons that I've seen of the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch to some of the sub $100 IMs in the market today, and I wanted to do a few comparisons of my own. So yeah, this is my review and comparisons of the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch with these particular IMs that I picked out of my own personal collection. I'll start with the EPZ Q5. The build quality is pretty nice. Got a smooth resin shell, small form factor, kind of relative to the size of the Moondrop 2.2. Little smoother kind of a shell though, like very light, because it's a resin shell as opposed to a metal shell, which just makes them comfort-wise just a little more comfortable than the 2.2 as well, for me. The pros and cons of the EPZ Q5 that I found personally was they held reasonably good vocals, good instrument clarity with cymbals and female vocals. Sound okay, fairly natural. The cons, the clarity and presence of bass guitars and kick drums. They could have more impact. Some of the mids sound a little thin on the Q5. Anyway, I'll get into the sub bass for a start, and it's kind of light on sub bass with one of the sub bass reference tracks, Seawall by Hans Zimmer. The sub bass is kind of light, feels a little rolled off and a little early. It feels more in the sort of 40 to 50 hertz region that you kind of hear more than anything below that. Hasn't really got much depth. I'd say I'd give it around about a 6 out of 10 on the sub bass, sort of impact and all over kind of definition. The mids, when it comes to the mids, there is a bit better clarity in the lower mids than there is in the upper mids, and a little more presence in the lower mids than there is in the sub bass, like a fair bit more actually. Bass guitars aren't the most prominent. They're behind the other instruments like electric guitars and acoustic guitars, and the vocals and kick drums are kind of weak in impact as well. They both feel a little dulled, like the bass guitars and the kick drums, like they're being outshone by the upper mids and treble. The upper mids and treble are a little more present and a little clearer than the lower mids, and vocals are pretty clear. Female vocals, I think, have a better tonality, more natural sounding than male vocals on the Q5. A track I was listening to, Led Home by Strung Out. The male vocals were a little thinner than what they were on some of the other sets that I demoed and did comparisons with. With female vocals, a track I was listening to, Ceiling by Lizzie McAlpin. The vocals are still kind of thin, but had a little airy and breathiness to them with the Q5. The vocals are kind of intimate on the Q5. Lower treble is a little thin. It's the upper treble that has more natural presentation on the Q5. Cymbals are clear. For instance, in current favourite tracks, Equus by Nova Viscaris, cymbals really sound pretty clean. They had a good bit of shimmer and they sound fairly natural and are more the star of the show alongside the vocals. Comparing the Q5 to the TRN Conch and the Simgot EA500, Kiwi's Cadenza and Moondrop Chew 2 and the Fiio FD11. I think the Conch has about the same level of detail and in the sub bass and lower mids as the EPZ Q5 does, although a little more presence and slightly better detail in lower mids than the Q5. Slightly better bass guitars and kick drums have a little more impact too on the Conch than the Q5. And then into the upper and lower mids and treble section where you find most of your male vocals and female vocals and some of your instruments. They're very similar. Although I feel like the Conch has slightly better presence with bass guitars. I should mention I did mod the Conch just a little bit. I have the red nozzles on the Conch, which I put just about a 1.5 millimeter square of foam that I just got out of like a little beanbag filler. I've actually got some proper tuning foam on the way. I just haven't received them yet, so I wanted to mod the Conch because I felt the mids were a little thin and in the stock tuning with the red nozzles, and when I added that little bit of foam, the mids and the bass, the lower sort of mid bass and that sort of thing, became a little warmer and just a little more natural. So yeah, I should have kind of talked about that earlier, but anyway, moving on. The male vocals are a little better on the Conch. Let Home by Strung Out. Male vocals sound a little more natural, and kick drums and toms are a bit more impactful. When I compare the EPZ Q5 and Conch to the Moondrop Chew 2, the vocals are kind of thin on the Chew 2 as well, and there's about the same impact and presence in the bass guitars and drums as the EPZ Q5. The vocals are thin too. The cymbals are as clear as the Q5, or and the TRN Conch. Chew 2, the mids and a bit more forwardness on the Chew 2 with the kind of the upper mids, and it's just a little bit thicker in the vocals, but still with a kind of a grainy thinness as well. They have average resolution and average sound stage. I think the resolution is better on the Q5 and the Conch, at least with the tips I was using, which were the large Kbear 07 tips. They may have sounded better with other tips, but I wanted to keep the tips and cables fairly all kind of the same, more or less. The only cable that I used that was any really different to any of the other cables was the balance cable I used with the Q5, which I don't think really made much difference, sound quality wise. Anyway, Chew 2 comes off a little more muddy, and in comparison to the Q5 and the Conch, which I thought, at least with the large Kbear tips, the 07s, were a little cleaner on the Q5 and the Conch. Moving on to the Fiio FD11 and the Simgot EA500 versus the EPZ Q5 and the Conch. The FD11 has about the same sub bass as the Q5 and the TRN Conch, maybe just a little more depth though in the FD11. When it comes to sub bass, the FD11 has a more forward sub bass, more forward, mid and kick drums have pretty good impact. Double kick drums, bass guitars sound pretty good. Toms and vocals have a good presence. The upper mids and lower treble more forward than on the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch. Vocals are clearer and a little more forward. Toms and cymbals sound good, clear with good snappy clarity, like fairly kind of good detail on the FD11. Vocals are just a little thin in some tracks, but also slightly warmer as well than on the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch. Vocals are forward but pretty clean on the FD11. I'd say overall just a little better in the vocals than the Q5 and the Conch, but I think the Conch has slightly better cymbals and a little more pulled back vocals, which make the Conch a little less fatiguing when it comes to like a longer listening session. Same with the Q5, the upper mids and lower treble aren't as forward as the FD11, so they won't become fatiguing like they can sometimes on the FD11. But I think the FD11 has better drums and better vocal presence, a little better bass guitar presence as well. Overall, I think the FD11 is more of a metal and rock IM for my personal taste. Overall, the FD11's great kind of for those type of genres. The EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch versus the stock Simgot EA500 with the stock red nozzles. The EA500 has better sub bass impact, better depth, a little better resolution in the sub bass and in the lower mids, better definition and impact in the kick drums, better all-round balance and detail resolution, a little better, more natural vocals, wider sound stage, wider center stage as well. Vocals don't feel as intimate as they do on the Conch, and still a little better, a little better than also the Q5 as well. A little more natural and in presentation, and a little better micro details in vocals and instruments, that sort of thing. They feel more of the soundstage, and the soundstage feels a little more natural and resolving than the Q5 and the Conch. Bass guitars have a more natural presence with better detail and resolution. Vocals are warmer, natural. Cymbals have better resolution too. On the EA500, just has better detail and micro details in the Q5 and the Conch, and more natural presentation of the soundstage, which I sort of already previously mentioned, without anything sounding too forward or too pushed back. They're very, very well balanced. Lastly, the Kiwi's Cadenza versus the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch. Drums, vocals and instrument sections are very similar to the Conch and the Q5. The lower mids are warmer, not as resolving, but the kick drums and crashes are okay. Pretty much on the same level as the Conch, maybe just a little more impact. In the kick drums on the Cadenza, though, the vocals are very similar on the Conch and just a little better than the Q5. I think the cymbal strikes on the Cadenza are more natural than the Conch, but both have pretty good cymbal strikes. Vocals are a little thinner on the Conch and the EPZ Q5 as compared to the Kiwi's Cadenza. I'd say the Cadenza comes off a little more natural, with slightly better and more balanced details and vocals, and a little more natural soundstage, which I prefer. Out of the TRN Conch and EPZ Q5, I think the Conch wins in that it's a little warmer presentation, especially with the mod I talked about before, where I added the little bit of foam to the red nozzles. It made them just a little warmer, so that definitely helped in that aspect. Otherwise, I think they would be very, very similar in like detail and resolution between the Conch and the Q5. But yeah, with that mod that I did, yeah, the Conch was just a little warmer and just had just a little more sort of enjoyable kind of a sound to them, I'd say. The Q5 maybe just a little more stage width. The Conch has a little more height and depth than the Q5 did. Where I would place the Q5 and the Conch in terms of the Q5 and the TRN Conch versus the Simgot EA500, the Kiwi's Cadenza FD11 and Moondrop Q2. I'd place the Simgot EA500 first, followed by the Cadenza, and then the TRN Conch, followed by the Fiio FD11, EPZ Q5, and lastly I'd place, at least with the tips I used, I'd place the Moondrop Q2 last in that list. Which I think was probably the least resolving with those tips. Well, that's my review of the EPZ Q5 and the TRN Conch. I hope you enjoyed my review and comparisons, and I hope you guys, if you decide to buy either of them, or if you have them already, yeah, I'd like to know what you think of them as well. And yeah, if any of those other IMs are on your list, I hope that my comparisons helped you maybe pick a little you know, what each of those might be, you know, good or bad in comparison to the Conch and the Q5. I also have there the DAX and the other sources that I used. I should have mentioned that before, but mostly use them with the Fiio BTR3K, the XDuo XP2 balanced, and my desktop stack, which is SMSL HA100, and an XDuo Bluetooth DAC, which is my little desktop setup. But anyway, yeah, that's about all I have to say about the Conch and the Epz Q5. I hope that was enough information, and yeah, that's just my general perspective on how I thought they sounded in comparison to the Simgot EA500, the Cadenza, the FD11, and the Chew 2. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll be back with some more reviews pretty soon. I've also started a review tour group in Australia, which if you want to catch us, I'll be posting some reviews on Tri-Fi audio reviews as well, and I'll link my fellow reviewers in the comments section as well. Anyway, yeah, I'll be back and pretty soon, and hopefully I can bring you some more interesting reviews of some upcoming IMs that I have coming our way for our new group that is going to be based in Australia. We have the Simgot EA500 on the way, as well as a couple of units from Arty, the R1 and the T10. So yeah, hopefully I can bring some reviews to you soon of those, and yeah, I'll link our group, the rest of the guys that have joined my Australian review tour group. I'll link them in the comments section. I mean the description, and if you see my review linked in Tri-Fi audio reviews, I'll be linking their linking their names down there as well. So you might also see them eventually on other platforms. Possibly YouTube or Facebook, I don't know, whatever they decide to do. But yeah, we've only just started this group this week, so it's going to be a little slow to start. But we're already speaking to 3 or 4 Tri-Fi companies about getting some review units out to us, and just getting the ball rolling, and hopefully getting a great review team in Australia to bring the Tri-Fi world to the Aussie market, and yeah, hopefully this will all work out for us, and we're all very, very excited about this new little adventure, and yeah, it's going to be a great little test of how the Aussie reviewers down under can sort of bring you guys our own kind of reviews, and we have different members that have different backgrounds as well, so hopefully we can make it interesting for everyone. Anyway, that's me for today. I'll be back soon. See you guys.